Welcome to Behind the Build. I'm your host, Jonathan Jacobs, and today I have with me on a podcast that is about the design community, their operations, the people that they have working for them, with them, their clientele. This is a podcast dedicated at both educating those that don't know about the design industry, but also educating those within it. So today's guest is Nathan Buhler.
Hey.
Nathan Buhler is the founder of BLDG Workshop, located in Toronto, Ontario, Canada. And I'm excited because Nathan and I have spoken on and off about his practice, about what we do for the last couple of years. We've never partnered on a project together, and that's no fault of anyone. It is simply a matter of the fact that Nathan creates some really, really incredible stuff. And those fortunate enough to be able to build it get to put their skills to work on some pretty architecturally significant projects, not just in the city of Toronto, but well beyond it, into remote areas of Ontario, which is really cool, and beyond. So Nathan, thank you very much for joining today.
It's coming. Someday soon here, we're going to have a project together.
That's okay. We're not here to talk about our projects together. We're here to talk about you. So
we are all of us, right?
We, the collective we. I know I'm not entirely sure who that is, but there are people there. And I'm a Gemini, so maybe it's something to do with that. Anyhow, Nathan, when did you decide you were going to do this? This design thing, this
design thing actually is a bit of an evolution. I got into it pretty late in life. I did a bunch of other stuff. I did like Bible school, like theology training, and like spent time overseas working as a missionary and stuff. And then it wasn't until I kind of decided I hate people that I got out of that. I'm just joking, obviously, but it was kind of burning me out. And I felt like I had just a bunch of creativity that was trying to get out of me and didn't have any like way of knowing even how to make that work. So I went back to, let's say, design school. I did a college route at Sheridan College when I was like pushing 30 kind of thing. And then like a week into that, and I was like, did you know there's a guy that built a house over a waterfall? And basically I haven't ever had anything that I wanted to do as much as that since that.
And that guy is
Frank Lloyd Wright, obviously.
Yeah, Frank. Imagine I'd be able to interview that guy. Somehow rewind the clock.
You may not want to, right? Like
yeah.
He sometimes did really cool stuff, and other times he was, directly responsible for people's heads literally getting chopped off with a dude with an axe.
Yeah, fair. Well, so let's talk about you and not the axe. So you reset yourself professionally.
Yeah.
And when did you find your practice? What year was that?
So I worked for a number of years kind of for different firms, both firms and like design build firms. We were talking earlier how much I love design build, which I still do. But yeah, so then I guess it would have been coming out of 2008 and not really sure what the economy was going to look like. And finally I was like, screw it. I'm doing it on my own. And maybe I'll just do decks and basement walkouts for 7 years until we get to actually do something real. And it kind of all happened a bit quicker than that right off the bat, that we became, at least somewhat respectable. And then we just been pushing ever since then.
And what are the types of projects that you're looking at? Are they renos? Are they generally new builds? What do you get?
Probably
what do you get
earlier into it, we were doing a lot of kind of like, Toronto long skinny homes, and we're putting a 2-story addition on the back, interior renos. But I mean, our goal was always really to work with great people. So projects can kind of be what they are as long as you kind of like everybody involved and you're having fun.
Yeah.
But it was always kind of like wanting to work with great people and working in really nice locations, right? And not fancy locations, but where there's rocks and trees and water and gnarly stuff that makes you, try and keep up with the architecture, so to speak.
We're going to go all the way down that path because most of what you do is not in the city. Is that correct or not?
We do a lot of stuff in the city, and actually, like some of the better projects that we'll show, coming up within the next 6 months or a year or so, are projects in the city. There's still, one's on a river, one's on the lake, kind of thing. But I would say more and more we've pushed our work towards stuff that really wants to connect with nature.
So you started the practice, your own practice. You said 2008.
We probably started on the path. Building Workshop started officially in 2011, let's say.
Oh, okay. So now you're 13 years old.
Yeah, something like that.
Congratulations.
I'm just entering puberty.
Based on what you said before, maybe this is the communion. So in 13 years, you've gone from renovations to new builds. And I was appropriately corrected that most of it is actually in the city, and there is work outside the city.
Yeah, it's just a mix, and it's renovation work, and it's very small projects still, and it's large projects, and it's kind of everything, right?
And how you evolve with staff. What is I want to ask this question. I want to go down this path with you because I don't know it and I want to know it. First staff member that you brought on, what was their role? Was it design? What were they doing?
That's a good question. The first staff member that comes to mind is a friend of mine that still works with us at least sometimes. And he may not have been the actual first, but he's a guy I met my very first day of design school. He was like, "Hey Nathan, you got like a movie name, right?" I'm like, "Oh yeah, the Ferris Bueller thing." He's like, "I've never heard of that, but there's a movie with a guy named Nathan on it." It's my buddy George, and he's probably the most naturally skilled designer I've ever met. And he does a lot of stuff, but his just kind of like his innate design sense and his drawing is unbelievable. So he started with us way back then, and he's left us since and done 100 different things. And he always kind of seems to weave himself back in and out of our practice. So he's weaved in at the moment.
Okay. And so he's doing design. Yeah,
he does design. Probably the way we've always said it is I'll be trying to design something myself and be like, yeah, it's just not quite there yet, right? It's 95% there. He's like, what, you mean this? And then within 15 minutes, he'll kind of take what he can tell is in my brain and recreate it in drawing form, so to speak.
Okay. And then from there, he was the number, or potentially number one, number two.
Sure.
Yeah. And then beyond that, what is the staffing situation looking like?
Staffing's just always been kind of an evolution, right? So then we went from there. That would have been, we got really, really quiet after that for a while. So I probably had 2 people with us, and then both of them left, and it was just me for probably a year and a half while we were really grinding it out, and probably like 2014, 2015, like just trying to like hope that we could stay open kind of thing.
Okay.
And then we slowly started growing after that. So then maybe 2015, 2016, my buddy Adam that works with us joined us, and a lady named Andrea, who is sometimes full-time and sometimes she just kind of works on a contract basis. So they've been with us for probably maybe my numbers are off here, but 6 or 7 years kind of thing. And,
right.
And yeah, so we've just kind of slowly grown with, we're now probably 7 or 8 people, and some of those would be full-time and some part-time.
And is everyone that is a part of that 7 to 8, are they all designers, or what is the breakdown?
Sorry, that's a good question. Yeah. The ones I was just referring to would be kind of 7, 8 designers. And then we've also got, a couple of people that are helping with, bookkeeping and some marketing and invoicing and client relations and stuff like that. Okay.
And how many projects are you looking at in a given time frame? We kind of talked about this over lunch.
Yeah. Like I wouldn't know how many we would do like start to finish in a year kind of thing, but at any given time, we'd probably have like 20 to 25 on the go.
Okay.
And that would be, anywhere from stuff that's in construction or finishing construction to permitting to, just on the boards kind of thing.
Okay. And you had told me throughout the conversations we've had in the past that you also like to maintain the connectivity of the architecture to the interior. So you look after interiors as well.
Yeah, that's kind of been something that I've struggled to make like as a, let's say like a full service firm. And so we're still in that, but we're definitely trying to push to on every project do full interior design as well. So work in progress, right?
Right. And then beyond all of that, you talked about the interest or keen interest in wanting to connect your architecture to the outdoors. So
100%.
I said to you before, well, yeah, a lot of your projects are up north. No, they're not. We'd like to be. There are certain projects that you have had that have been largely remote projects.
Yep.
I know this because I've seen them. We've talked about them. What has it been like to walk on a land for the first time were some of these projects on developed land? Let's start there. Was it developed land previously or not?
Yeah, all kinds of things, right? Some places there's an existing cottage. Some places it's just like nothing but stones, and can we work with that or can we not? But I mean, again, we're kind of doing all kinds of things, and we're always just trying to take the same principles to every scenario, right? So I just came to mind a project we did maybe 7 or 8 years ago where it was a city lot. It was a nice big lot, but there wasn't really much available for, connecting architecture to landscape. But they really wanted their backyard to be great, even though the house was facing north kind of thing. And I was like, it's just always going to be in the shade. And so basically we just cut open the front of the house all the way up to the point that light could kind of drag itself all the way through the house and connect to diffuse light in the back. And I told the client that so many times what we were doing. And then after he'd lived in it for like 6 months, he's like, this house is just everything, like even in the backyard. He's like, you meant to do that, didn't you? I'm like, I told you we meant to do that. But, just again, no matter the location or the set of kind of guideposts that are around a project, we're always trying to take a project and almost carve it away so that the landscape can be the star, right?
Right. And so what have been on some of the remote projects that you've looked at, when you walk onto the site, are you laying the potential for what the home could be or the cabin could be while you're there, or are you trying to absorb the geography and topography first and then go lay it out when you're back?
Yeah,
what does the design process look like?
That's a good question. I don't know if I'm allowed to gush about people that I love, but Shim Sutcliffe here in town is maybe my favorite architect in the entire world. And so when they did Integro House, there was I don't know if this is just urban myth or whatever, but that he actually sat for about 30 days just sketching for the full month kind of thing of every, how the sun would hit the site and how it would hit kind of each part of the site at any part of any given day. Anyway, so, I mean, it would be lovely if you could just sit and camp and sketch your whole life. That's not necessarily what's in front of us, but we do try and spend as much time with the site and just kind of sit and, sometimes camp or at least spend the night kind of thing and just kind of let the land speak to you, so to speak. It's a bit esoteric, but I kind of like it.
I don't think so. I think if you're going to know how someone's going to experience it, then probably one of the best ways to experience that is to experience it yourself.
And that's a good point, right? A lot of times we're saying, here's the land, here's what we're going to do to it. And what we really try and do, as much as listening to the land, is try to listen to the client, right? Because they're the ones, assumedly, that have been on the site, that have kind of lived it, can feel what it does and how they want their life to respond to that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. Actually, we have some projects, and any project that has like a decent view, prior to it having that view, as a company, we got a drone. It's like, from now on, I want to start using that drone to show people what will it look like to look out your window,
right? And
what will you see?
Right.
It's just another way of giving someone the experience,
totally,
and understanding.
There's one project we finished. This is probably a couple years ago that was finished, but it was an island project, and the client was like, "Well, we really want to have like our mornings in front of the sunrise, but we want to have our evenings in front of the sunset. So are we going to put the screen porch on the sunrise side or the sunset?" And we kind of designed the house both ways and couldn't figure it out. But it was kind of a peninsula to the point that we're like, oh, why don't we just kind of put it at the prow of the house, so to speak, so that, and then so in the end, and we could just open up that screen porch to the rest of the house with like a huge sliding door kind of thing. And so then basically the whole front of the house can just essentially be outside all day, every day kind of thing. So yeah, stuff like that is always fun.
The point you brought up before about Shim and Sutcliffe and designing it for 30 days, my hope is to be able to get you that answer.
Okay. Whether or not that actually happened, or if that's just what somebody said.
Yeah, whether it's just folklore.
We did just a hiking trip with not hiking. We were walking around with my boys by Evergreen Brickworks.
Yeah.
I don't know, a couple years ago. I was like, see guys, that's Integro House. That's Shim Sutcliffe. They're the best that exists. And one of my boys like, Dad, is your best project you've ever done as good as their worst project? I'm like, no.
That's a tough question.
In that case, it wasn't too hard.
Yeah, kids are unrelenting.
They just go straight to the heart, right?
They're just like, where's the warm up to that? You're sleeping outside tonight. You're gonna throw me under the bus like that. What is that about, son? So you just talked about it there, like an island project. So a person comes to you. We've got an island we want to build on. Do they come to you and are they giving you a great understanding of what they're looking for from an architecture standpoint? Or is this completely on you to draw out of them? Well, what does your process look like to be able to get that information out of these people?
Yeah, it's a good question, right? Because they'll always have certain things that they definitely want. Their life is going to, like I say, respond to that site and how they're going to live on it, right? Mm-hmm. So it becomes a process of listening to the land, listening to the client. In that case, though, it was like, okay, well, what can we do with it? And they were, they had a couple of catchphrases about, keeping the house as low as possible and, let's say, Scandinavian style. And that was probably the extent of what they gave me to say, now take all those ingredients and make the proper stew, right? Mm-hmm. So yeah, in that case, they gave me a lot of freedom to kind of do what we wanted. In that case, the landscape really did, not force the design, but we managed to work it into the landscape.
I feel like that's also a very big challenge when you're left with something that is so blanketed as generic from a design aesthetic.
Totally.
Like, where do you take this?
I remember one time I worked for, like I said, I went to Sheridan College. So in one of my work terms, this is way back, right? But I worked at like facilities management, doing like AutoCAD room layouts or whatever. And so every lunch break, I would go and like look at all the different mediums. Let's say the crafts, whether it be the wood people or the ceramics or whatever. And like, these are 19-year-old kids that were just like blowing my mind with their creativity. And then at the very far end of the hall was like the fine arts, where it was just like, you can do anything. There's no like guideposts. There's nothing kind of keeping you. Yeah. And it was garbage, right? It was just like they would take like an easel and just like whip paint at it. Like it was, I don't know. It was, and you could see like where you had some restriction or some framework to kind of work creativity within. People found a lot more ease at creating good work.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's hard. It's you go have a day off with nothing planned in your agenda. What are you going to do with it? Right. Like, I think most people are going to struggle with that.
Yeah.
So do you find it often that within your design process that when you're bringing the first iterations of what someone has provided to you and you bring back to them, are you generally relatively on point, or do you find it really varies between clients? Like, do you ever have a project that's going through schematic design for a year and a half?
No, but for multiple iterations, it might take a couple of months or 3-4 months kind of thing. It would be pretty rare that we would bring something back and a client's like, this is absolutely 100% garbage, right? It would be just as where they'd say this is absolutely perfect. And it's not that it wouldn't happen, but it's almost like when people are like, yep, perfect, looks great. It's like, oh, like we didn't have the chance to really like beat the crap out of this, right? Yeah. We wanted to really work it until it's awesome, right? So I'm pretty happy when clients are like, yeah, this is great, and let's keep working on it.
Right. Yeah, you need a little bit of a pushback, right, to be able to go pull out the finer details that aren't there that you haven't really thought of yet.
Yeah.
I think that goes with almost anything that you're going to do in life. You got to be challenged. And so in terms of the overall evolution of the business, is there a certain design aesthetic that you started with that you are now achieving, or do you feel as though you have always been working towards the same design elements within your projects?
It's a really good question. I'd say I don't know. Probably. I'm just answering this on the spot right now. Probably where we would have started with is that we want to do great work, and that great work I think would have always from the start been modern in its vocabulary, but it was never trying to say, therefore it has to be gray stucco on a flat roof kind of thing. So probably our work has evolved along the same principles. I would have started out with it as just saying, let's try and do, great stuff. And it doesn't have to be a modern vocabulary, but I would say, 95% of our work will pick up at least detailing of that. And then often our work is, within a more traditional form than typical flat roof. I mean, we do lots of flat roofs too, but you know what I'm saying? There's when you just like walk down a street and you're like, oh, there's a modern, and it feels all kind of ubiquitous.
Yeah.
We would try and push our design intent maybe a little bit more thoughtful than that.
Are there any specific details that you apply to your design where someone walking past could say, like, this is a building workshop project?
We've done a bunch of like fins that kind of just like stick out, like that in some cases are almost just decorative, which is obviously a modernist no-no. I did have one contractor a while back be like, so that's kind of a building workshop thing. I'm like, oh, I didn't really realize it was, but maybe we are relying on that a bit too much, but we still like it. So we'll probably keep doing it.
Yeah. I think of the aesthetic you're referring to, and I'm pretty sure that I know exactly what you're talking about. Which is not a bad thing, because I think that in some ways you want to be able to have someone walk past when there's nothing on it after completion that says, this was a building workshop project. Yeah,
it's funny, right? You see some people that their aesthetic or their style through a career or through a portfolio is really, really, really pushes their brand, so to speak, right?
Yeah.
I'm saying that in some cases it's probably a bit, not the thing kind of thing, but I think of another huge fan. I'm a huge fan of Ian McDonald.
Yeah.
And so you see his work, right? And his detailing, like it gets like more refined, like almost every project. And you see it across his whole, his whole body of work. And you can feel Ian McDonald all the way through all of it. But that doesn't necessarily mean that he's, just rehashing his same thing. He's creating a beautiful like body of work, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then there'd be other cases where you'd be like, oh, that guy's just kind of cutting and pasting. So we probably don't do either of those things. We probably just hit each project as it comes and tailor it to each client and how that client's tastes want to evolve along with us.
And do you ever feel that there have been any form of redundancies to the design, or do you feel like you're always able to draw upon something slightly new in each individual project? Or have you walked into a project and you're like, I don't want to do this detail anymore. I've done this detail enough.
We have done like a lot of what would be kind of fall into the catchphrase of kind of modern farmhouse, I guess.
Okay.
And I love it. Like, some people are like, I do not. In fact, I can think of a gentleman that we both know who's literally said that phrase to me. And I don't mind it. I really like that style, and that's like what those forums do. But if it was going to be like you're only going to do modern farmhouses and nothing else for the rest of your career, then it'd be like, all right, well, time to hang them up, right?
Yeah, I'll pull shoot.
Yeah. Okay.
So 2025 projects. Generally, most of what you're doing is modern. If you have your say.
Yeah.
You've got somewhere between 8 to, based on what you're saying about people helping with payables and bookkeeping. So you've got like 8 to 12 people between those on staff and yourself and part-time.
Yeah.
And the projects are ranging from Toronto out into some of the lesser known parts of Northern Ontario. But you did talk about some projects that were not in Ontario. You talked about some projects over lunch that are out west.
Yeah, we've got a couple of really nice projects we've done. We've kind of got a few projects right on this one lake called Kalamalka Lake. It's right by Vernon, BC, so it's Okanagan, but it's not like Kelowna, Kamloops kind of thing.
Yeah.
And it's just a beautiful community, beautiful lake. It's kind of got like that green blue Lake Louise kind of look to it. And we've been really lucky to do a few projects out there. We missed out on one last year. My sister is on the lake, and she had her neighbor is like best friends with Haley Wickenheiser, who kind of toured through my sister's place. I'm like, oh man, if we can get that, then we can like dial into that new Leaf contract money kind of thing. But that didn't work out, so we were disappointed about that.
But you've had a few projects out in that region.
Yeah, I'm from BC originally.
Okay.
So we've got lots of friends out there still, and we get a phone call every now and then. Hey, we want to do this project. Can we work on this together? And yeah, we love working out there when we can.
And what are the challenges you find between designing for BC versus designing for here?
I mean, in that case specifically, we've worked only with the same contractor, and they're just, I mean, I would say, I don't know how you would feel about this per se, but we really, really rely on our contractors, right? Like, we can put so much thought and intent and drawing into a project, and there's still, if we answer 30% of the questions, we're lucky, right? There's probably another 70% that the contractors just got to figure out, like, not to just dump it on the contractor, right? But we really, really rely on great contractors and them being thoughtful and engaged in the same way we are.
Yeah.
And when they're, when a client says we're bringing this contractor in and they're not, well, it's rough, right? Luckily, we work almost exclusively with just mind-blowingly great contractors, builders. And then that's the case with this guy out
NBC.
with this guy in BC. They're really smart. So they're answering questions before we've even thought of them, kind of thing. And so it's worked out really, really seamlessly.
That's fantastic. Where did you grow up in BC?
I'm actually from like way, way northern BC. Like, most people have heard of Prince George, which is like 10 hours out of, or maybe 8 hours out of Vancouver. And we're like another 4 hours into the bush from there, kind of thing. It's like there's only moose and mosquitoes where I'm from.
Wow. And you left there and you went to school in Vancouver?
Did a bunch of work, a bunch of time. I lived in Vancouver,
Okay.
in young adulthood, let's say.
Yeah.
And then my wife's from here, so then we moved out here. I'd spent, like I said, some time in South America during that time, and then we moved out here finally, I guess, in 2003, something like that, 2003 or 2004.
How did you meet your wife if she's from here?
She was out there doing her schooling up there.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you said before, you mentioned your kids and they were giving you a hard time about the...
Yeah. Nothing but hard times. Although every now and then they'll be like, Dad, look what I did in SketchUp today. So they're slowly, I'm trying to just like slowly pull them in, and we'll see if they become creatives, or I was saying my oldest is in the process of becoming a rock star guitarist. So we'll see what each of them kind of evolves into.
And so how many kids do you have?
We're 3 kids, 14, 12, and 10, all boys. So it's just wrestling and headbutts.
I mean, just to also preface this, that I have, among some of the other paraphernalia inside of my tiny little office here that I do most of these interviews with right now, I have some wrestlers, the figurines from the 1980s. So that last line works really well when we look up at like pictures of Hulk Hogan and who else do I have there? I've got Andre the Giant.
One of my great moments of life, about a year or two ago, I was arguing with my youngest about if I was the coolest dad perhaps in existence, and he says no. But when I put it to him who was cooler, he had to really think about it before he finally came up with John Cena.
John Cena?
Who I don't know if is a dad, but...
Yeah, I was going to say, like, he doesn't know how good of a dad John Cena would or wouldn't be. No, you're setting the baseline. Son, you are wrong. Okay, well, so you got projects out west. Do you have anything out east? And the reason why I ask these questions is because generally, like, the topography of those two regions is completely different than what you see here.
Yeah.
Like the Canadian Shield here is very different.
It's a thing, right? It's so beautiful. And I didn't know that, like, growing up in BC. I mean, I probably used to be, but my people from back there are still like, kind of like, oh, Toronto thinks they're the center of the world, right? And I got out here, I'm like, oh no, Leaf fans are like really sweet, down to earth people, right? And Muskoka is unbelievably beautiful. I just didn't know that before being here. We haven't done any work in Nova Scotia or East Coast yet. We would love to. We do have one in Vermont right now.
Oh, really?
Which is coming along really nicely. It's not in construction yet, but the design for it is coming along really nicely.
And how did they find you?
I'm going to say...
Is it a Canadian client or is it an American client?
No, American client. I think in that case, one of our projects had fairly nice media around it, kind of on Instagram and a bunch of different, arch dailies or architizers or whatever. And I'm not sure where they saw it, but I think they saw that project and said, we basically want something very similar to that. It won't be exactly like that, but similar to that. Can you do that for us? And so we've been in the process of that.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And did they email you, or is a message that you got through Instagram?
I don't know how they first reached out to us.
Okay.
Probably by email.
Okay.
But I mean, she's been here, so we've she's been in the city and we've met, or we'll talk over Teams, or I mean, realistically, we don't see or talk or meet with them much differently than we would with most clients.
Right. I find it interesting how organically those kinds of things can just materialize from nothing.
Yeah.
Now you're wondering, like, when am I getting my next project? What's going to look like? How's this all going to work? What are my plans for this going to look good? What are they going to be?
Yep. Is
this practice going to be able to stay alive? And you said you struggle with that, what was it, 2015?
Yeah, something like
right?
that. We were so, there was probably a 6-month period where I was like at work till 2-3 a.m., sometimes in tears, right? Like just grinding. And like, maybe we're going to make it. And we finally kind of came out of it. So,
and now you've got projects going on in Vermont, BC, throughout all of Ontario. I'd say that you came out of it okay.
We're pretty happy with how things have come along, but it hasn't been, without blood, sweat, and tears, and without a lot of what we would call blessings.
Well, so I want to actually, over lunch, we were talking about as the evolution of a business can happen, sometimes opportunity presents itself. And I had asked you, can we talk about it? And you said, sure. So there was a stage with your business where another company had actually bought you out. And what did that look like? How did it come to you? How did you feel at the time? Did you feel validated, or did you feel, or were you sad? Like, what was that like for you?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. So this was maybe 3 years ago now. But yeah, a company kind of came out of nowhere. Again, I think they connected with us on Instagram at the very first point. Mm-hmm. We're not really that big on Instagram. Like we're there, but it's not like, I've got a guy I know from BC he's just a guy and he's got like 150,000 followers, something like that. We're small fry in that arena. Right. But we have, it has worked for us in some cases. But yeah, so I think they reached out to us there first. And in the course of a couple of weeks, discussions were just, that you hear about on movies or whatever, like it was just an offer I couldn't refuse kind of thing. So they were growing extremely rapidly in a nice time of our economy. Right.
Yeah. And
yeah, basically their design team was also growing really rapidly, but they needed somebody to give leadership to it, I guess. And to be fair, like most of their staff was really, really, really competent, really great, but more from an interior design perspective. And they needed somebody also to kind of create leadership from an architectural design perspective.
Yep. So,
and so they didn't technically buy us out. Basically, they just, offered me enough money, let's say, to incentivize me to mothball Building Workshop and to go work with them. And it was really great. Like it was fun. It was exciting. It was engaging. It definitely felt, validating.
Yeah.
And then one day they phoned up and were like, well, I mean, this has been fun, but pack your stuff up because we're out of business. I'm like, literally the week before, the leadership was talking about like our expansion plans into across Canada and not very long expansions across North America. And I guess it was just all smoke and mirrors. Or maybe they just honestly didn't know how bad they stuff was going to catch up to them. I've never really been able to figure it out, but it was all quite shocking and surprising.
And this you said this was about 3-4 years ago.
I mean, sorry, my dates are wrong.
It's okay.
It would have been November. Yeah, so it ended only about a year and a half ago. So no, it would have been 2 years ago, let's say.
Okay, so because this is anyone trying to grow or scale a business, in some ways, this is the ultimate conclusion, right? You, in some ways, get to remove your risk from the sale, right? Because now they've got people that are going to look after that for you, and you just focus on the design, which can be great if that's what you want to do. And I say this because there are lots of different paths to being able to find your, and I'm going to use my parentheses, it's glory, right? Some people want to really grow and expand. Some people want to stay the size that they are. It really varies. That scale varies. And so to your point where you say, it's validating. I guess in many ways, you had to go through that to be able to also appreciate what was in front of you, because once that opportunity then falls apart, you then go full steam ahead with what you had been doing. And you correct me on this assumption, which is something that I try really to never do in these discussions. But I'm going to assume that it helped completely realign your focus with how you're going to deliver your product to your client.
Yeah, I would say 100% true. It was maybe not so like A to B, like straight line though, right? Like part of, a big part of the reason why I would have considered that offer in the first place was, just looking at my own personal skill set and saying, look, the way somebody grows a business or the way somebody does a business, I'm not really that good at that. Like I went to school. It's probably literally every designer's conundrum, right? Is like, oh, I went to school because I thought it was really cool and I wanted to do that. And now I answer emails all day while I wish I could design, and also like beat myself up about the fact that I can't build a company, right? Because I don't know how to build a company. I'm a designer, right? And so, thinking about that and kind of sketching my way through that or note taking about all my thoughts on that over the years. And then this was like exactly like you say, right? It was, hey, you can remove yourself from all of that stuff and you can just do, if not design itself, like design guidance, right? The tech world has a word for that, a title for that, right? Like basically the guy that's heading up the design division or design leadership, whatever. So it was super cool. But a lot of it too was not insecurity so much as just being like, I'm not that good at this. Why don't I just not have to do that anymore? And then, coming back out of it, to your point, it's like, okay, well, this is what I'm doing and this is what I love doing. And I've just got to either figure out how to get better at all that stuff that I'm not good at, and, or, gather people around me that are better at that and can do it. So there again, that's still big time a work in process, but we're slowly getting there.
And have you found that you have been able to now surround yourself with a staff? Again, we've discussed the number of staff, but in terms of the quality of staff, or I don't know, staff, sometimes people don't like the word staff because it means that someone's above or below. So I mean, you
my people,
yeah,
my people are probably, this probably isn't the question you're going to ask, but I'm always in love with our people because it always feels like everybody that kind of like engages with us, that connects with us, is always like a craftsman or like some type of artisanal something, or a skateboard or something. Somebody, it's always people that have interest in cool stuff, I guess, besides architectural design.
Well, yeah, and that in some ways is it. But the question I wanted to ask was, do you feel like the people that you have now brought in that are a part of your assembly? Yeah, sure, I'll go with that.
Group of us,
yeah,
whatever.
Are they all able to fulfill the specific role of complementing each other in a way that the other could not? Or do you feel like there is still some level of desire to find one or two more pieces to your puzzle to make the practice run in the way that you really ultimately want it to be running?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's probably like, no matter, I don't know, I would feel like no matter who you would ask that question to,
yeah,
from a business building standpoint, would always be like, oh no, it's got to be, there's still some missing pieces, right? But I mean, our group right now is really, really good, really strong. In fact, one of our key members is a lady that came with us from this other company I was with when it was all kind of burning to the ground. Some people kind of moved off in one direction. She's like, no, Nathan, let's have me come work with you because you're going to need it and it would be fun. So she's been with us since then, and basically she just makes all the stuff happen that I can't get going.
Well, and that's it, right? Is when you're running this business, it is really hard to be able to do it all.
Yeah.
To be able to do the sales,
yeah,
to be able to do the operations, look after HR, and then design.
Yeah.
I find most people that I've spoken to about all of this really struggle with the thing that is they're most passionate about, and that's like finding time for the design.
Yeah. And so so to answer your question though, we probably need another person that can just manage all the, the projects and the people, because I'll find that again, I'm spending half my day saying, okay, can you do this? And kind of, like working with each person like I should be, but then also, struggling there again that I'm organizing and what's the word? Just, creating everybody else's work for them rather than just having somebody else doing that.
Right.
So that there's free time for me to do the stuff I need to be doing.
Right. And what you had also mentioned to me is that you were really trying to find balance, right?
100%.
Between work and family.
Yep.
And with 3 boys, two, almost the third entering teenagehood, a couple years away, but you've only got a certain amount of time before they go off potentially to school.
Right.
And that family dynamic completely changes.
Yeah. No, so I've mentioned, or I don't know if we've referenced it a couple times already, this moment of time where it was probably the course of a year. 6 months of it would have been the hardest, but a year or a year and a half where it was just basically my life looked like nothing but work in order to try and keep the business open. And it ground my family down, and they're just little, and my poor wife, and, just trying to go through all that and keep all the things together. And so, there's been moments in time where, it would have been like, oh, we can really do a lot more if I kind of enter that kind of like insane, rhythm of work again, and just haven't really been willing to do that.
Right. So for my own curiosity, is there a certain region or certain place that if you could design a project, it would be for that area, for that perch on a cliff?
Wow.
I'm going like global. Pie in the sky. You get the ideal client saying, I want to do something with you. You tell me where and what. Wow.
I haven't really thought of that prior. I was going to reference earlier kind of almost the inverse of this question. One time my sister was like, explain to me your dream home. And it was like, that's an incomplete question, right? Like, until I've got a piece of property I'm looking at that the dream home responds to, like, you can't just say like what this would be. I mean, maybe you could, I couldn't. So then, is the inverse. What's the dream piece of property? Wow.
Yeah.
I
stumped you.
Well, the first thing that comes to mind is building something hanging out over a waterfall would be pretty dope. But we've had a couple projects where we've got to put a cottage or a house like right on a peninsula with water on almost 4 sides, like 3 sides, and it's pretty hard to beat. Like, you're bringing in light and views kind of from every angle almost, and basically you just got to slice and cut the house back so it just ceases to exist. So that's pretty hard to beat.
Okay. And is there something that you have wanted to be able to put into a house, a certain design feature that you have not yet been able to implement and you've been waiting for?
It's a good question. It would be fun to like build something like right properly into a cliff face, or like we're doing one project right now where we're kind of building the hill back over the house after we've cut it back to build the house. And so we're going to kind of bury a house. So that'll be cool. But it would be nice to have the house integrate into the landscape so much that it was actually the bare cliff face into the house kind of thing. Every time I talk about that, people start rolling their eyes on, you can't do that, and moisture.
I'm thinking of the, what's it called? Of the church in
in Arizona.
In Arizona.
Yeah.
In Sedona.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah, something like that.
Something like
right?
that. Woo. That would be something.
You can do it, and everybody says, well, I've seen that before, and the house was just always wet and damp and sweaty and stuff, but there's got to be a way to do it.
Yeah, there are ways around that. Right? There are definitely ways around that. You just need to speak to people that are like heavily involved in passive house, and they'll tell you all the ways that you can use vapor barrier and other barriers to be able to protect against all that.
Someday we'll figure it out.
Yeah. Okay, and then in terms of your personal time, things that you really want to get out there and do on your own to be able to take your mind off of it all, what are some of those things and what do they look like?
I mean, I watch a lot of hockey, but when this comes out, it'll be old news. But the Canucks, my dearest Canucks, just lost to the Oilers last night, so that's a hard one. But my personal time would probably be watching hockey, and then other than that, it's just a lot of family time. Kids are involved in sports and hanging out and stuff like that, and we spend a lot of time with our let's say our church family, our faith family, which is out in Mississauga, and that would probably be the extent of what I do.
And do you play hockey?
Not anymore. I'm a little too past my prime.
Past your prime. No,
I did play competitive ball hockey till I was probably early 40s anyways. At that point, we had a dude on our team that was like over 60, and he was still just fit, man. He was so good. But he unfortunately passed away.
I was gonna say, that's terrible. I apologize.
Yeah. No.
Yeah. It's just a different prime.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? Okay. And your wife, what
she does counseling. So she's got 2 different master's degrees.
Wow.
And she's got her own practice. And I tell her, like, in any given week, I do significantly more counseling than you do when I'm like not fighting with when I'm in the middle of clients who can't quite see eye to eye on how they want their house to revolve around them.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of counseling.
Marital counseling
in this business. It is a challenge to make people understand it if they've never done it before. And you can't understand things until you're ready to try to understand them.
Totally.
Right.
And it's education and it's thoughtfulness, right?
Yeah.
Being willing to engage with different ideas and considerations and yeah.
Okay. So last few questions I have is based on where you are currently in your career, what would you see yourself doing at the end of your career? Is this something that you think you would want to one day hand Building Workshop off to someone else? Have you considered what like a succession plan would look like at all?
I haven't thought about that too much. I mean, every now and then I joke around, hey, maybe my kids want to actually follow architecture and work with us and then eventually take it over. I would never push them, or even like strongly, guide them in that direction.
Yeah.
Well, we'll see how it goes. I mean, again, never thought about it too much, but it'd be kind of cool to have people that have been engaged with it to slowly take it over themselves, or who knows, right? Like that's still a long way in the future.
Yeah.
But it would be nice someday to spend more time just sitting in the Muskokas or sitting somewhere else, and not sitting, but just spending more time just actually engaging with nature rather than
designing around it.
Well, I don't mind designing. I'll probably never be tired of designing around it, but writing emails around it, let's say.
Yeah, fair. Well, Nathan, honestly, I appreciate all the time you've taken to discuss, the history of your life, the history of the practice, the direction of the practice, projects. Your work is outstanding. If you're unfamiliar with Building Workshop, I'd highly recommend taking a look, despite the fact that Nathan says that there aren't a whole lot of people that are following him like that, like some of the other people on Instagram. I would say you should go follow Building Workshop on Instagram. The work that you put out is amazing. It really is. I'm trying to think of another adjective to describe it, but it's great. And I've been a fan of it for a number of years. So I appreciate you taking the time. Thank you so much.
Really appreciate it. This has been, a lot of fun. And I just think that what you're doing here is really, really cool. Like it's exciting to listen every week about the, different practices and the different way they do stuff. And I really think it's cool.
I appreciate it. Yeah. It's fun when I get the text message every now and again from you saying, yeah, I really enjoyed that episode. So it's cool. That was one of the intentions with this. So it's good to know that it's being appreciated by whatever masses are out there.
Right on.
Thanks, man.
Thank you.